Well, welcome to Singing the Lines, project organised by Joanna Bond, ceramicist, and we're at Dyfi Junction station, and we've come here from Aberystwyth this morning, 25 minutes down the line, and we were going to film a story and tell a story on the train, but in fact a very nice, sweet, gentle guard, can't even have done that one, politely asked us not to, so we've got off at Dyfi Junction station. So I'm going to tell you the story here, although the story is about the piece of railway line that we've just been on, between Borth and between Dyfi Junction. There's lots of stories from this line, lots of old folk tales. One that most people will know is the story of Cantragwylo, the submerged land out in Cardigan Bay, just over there. And the stories of the old toad of Borth Bog on the other side of the railway line that we've just come along. The story of the hen Rach, the old witch who lives on the bog just over here. So many stories. We're right here now on the division between the two railway lines, the one that goes down to South Wales and the one that goes up to North, which was the division between the old kingdoms of Gwynedd and Dyfed, and where at one point in the past the king of Dyfed fought the king of Gwynedd, resulting in the death of Pryderi, the king of Dyfed. But the story I'm going to tell you is a very different one, and it's one that's often not told and not quite as well known. And it concerns this land that we're right smack bang in the middle of at the moment. From right up in the top of North Wales, as far as you can go in Gwynedd, you come to Penllyn, and you come to Penrhw, which is a mountain at the end of Penllyn. And from that mountain, all the way down through Wales, following the railway line all down the coast to here, and then all the way down to South Wales, where there is no railway line, you come to Fishguard and beyond into Pembrokeshire. Somewhere in the middle of that land, but out there where the sea is, there was said to be a mystical lost land, the land of Plant Rhys Ddyfn, the children of Rhys the Deep. Now, Rhys was a thinker, a philosopher, a leader. Deep didn't mean deep beneath the waves. It meant someone who was thoughtful, who had ideas, created things, taught other people. And Rhys had created a unique land, right out there in Cardigan Bay. It was a land where people respected each other. They respected the landscape, they respected the animals. They lived sustainably. They grew everything they needed and no more. And their bellies were full. It was a remarkable land. And Rhys was contented with the lives that all the people had. But he was worried. He was concerned about us, the people who live on the mainland. So to protect his land from our prying eyes, he planted herbs. And these herbs meant that we could not see his land. We could not see what was right in front of our noses. But there was one patch of herbs growing on the mainland, and some said it grew near Cemmaes in Pembrokeshire, some said it grew on Penrhw in the north, some said it grew right here where we're standing on the Dyfi estuary. And if you stood next to that patch of herbs, you would see this land of dream where everything worked, where people lived together harmoniously. Now, Rhys reached a point where people were living so harmoniously together. They were living in family units. They were having children. They loved each other. And as they loved each other, they had more and more children. And as they had more and more children, there were fewer and fewer houses for them to live in. So they built more villages. They built more towns. They built cities. And as they built more houses, there was less land to grow things. They began felling woods and felling trees. So suddenly they didn't have enough land to grow enough crops, to grow the food to fill their aching bellies. So they began to make things. They began to dig in the ground. They dug for minerals, for iron ore, and they made pots, cooking pots to make things in. They felled the few trees they had left, and they made bowls, they made sculptures, and they began to trade. They built boats, and they set sail, and they travelled to distant lands. They became like the Phoenicians before them. And soon they began to trade with the people on the mainland. They came to the markets in Cardigan, in Fishguard, in Aberystwyth, in Machynlleth, all the way up to Pwllheli and to Penrhw. And they became particularly fond of Cardigan Market. And the children of Plant Rhys Ddyfn were often seen coming towards the market. And as they arrived at the market, they found that the prices had gone high. And they used to say of Plant Rhys Ddyfn that they were the friends of Phil Sean Howell, the farmer, but they were no friends of David, the labourer, who couldn't afford the prices. And they became friends with one particular man at Cardigan Market, and he was called Griffith ap Einion. Griffith was one of these old-fashioned libertarians, in the old left-wing sense of the term, a follower of Tom Paine and of the Diggers and the Levellers. He was a reasonable man, and he gave them fair prices for the things that they were making. And this went on for many years, and eventually Plant Rhys Ddyfn decided to honour Griffith. They decided to show him their land, this land right out here now. And they took him to the patch of herbs. They stood him by the patch of herbs, and in that moment he saw the land of Plant Rhys Ddyfn. He saw a land of sustainability, a land where people respected each other, where they respected the animals, where they respected the trees, where if they ever took anything, they put an offering in its place. And he knew in that moment that there was a better way of life. And he asked them, how had they achieved this? Why was there no crime? Why was there no evil in this world? And they explained that there had once been, but Rhys had banished it in the way that St. Patrick had banished the adders and the vipers from Ireland. They'd been thrown out, and all they had left was a single piece of paper with a drawing. And this drawing had a creature with horns on its head, with a red, ruddy face, with a bosom full of vipers, and with cloven hooves for feet, clutching a knife with bodies strewn all around. No one who had seen that drawing ever wanted to meet that creature. So they lived happily, sustainably, all their lives. The second Griffith stepped away from the patch of herbs on the ground, he could remember everything he knew about the land of Plant Rhys Ddyfn, but he didn't know how to see it ever again. His eyes were misted once more by the sea. He couldn't see, but he knew there was a better way of life. Plant Rhys Ddyfn continued to trade with Griffith, but one day they came to the market at Cardigan, and there was a different feeling. There was a smell in the air, and they knew something was changed. Prices were high. Griffith, his hair had turned to snow and he died. And now the market traders at Cardigan wanted more money from Plant Rhys Ddyfn. In disgust they left, and they were never seen again at the market at Cardigan. Some said they went to Haverfordwest. Some said they went to Rhyw on Penllyn. They may even have come here to Machynlleth or Aberystwyth, but the truth is they were never seen again from that day onwards. But the sailors, the seamen, who travelled to this land and travelled to distant lands, as they were coming back towards the harbours at Aberystwyth or Newquay, they used to see in the distance a kind of green, promising land of hills and islands. And they used to say that was the green hills of enchantment, the land of Plant Rhys Ddyfn. And also, even to this day, you can stand on the promenade in Aberystwyth or anywhere along this coast, and on misty grey days like this one, you can see dotted along the horizon little islands that they call the Fairy Islands, because the term Plant Rhys Ddyfn is a colloquial name. in this part of the world for the fairies.